Galvanize is known for providing the most cutting-edge tech education and the most collaborative workspaces in the industry. On this episode of Out of Office, brought to you by Galvanize TV, we sit down with the CEO of Bluprint, John Levisay. And now your host, Katie Oblock.
Hi, welcome to Out of Office, where we sit down with entrepreneurs and listen to their journeys. Today we're here with John Levisay, CEO of Bluprint. They're an online learning platform and community for the creative and lifestyle business, I guess.
Great.
I guess people.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Before we start on the kind of the Craftsy journey, I want to take a step even further back and hear about what your first job was.
My first job was, like many Midwesterners growing up, was corn detasseling. So that involves your parents dropping you off at the Kmart parking lot at 4 in the morning, and then kids loading into a pickup truck. They take you to a cornfield, and you spend about somewhere between 10 and 12 hours pulling tassels off corn. Brutal work. Arms get cut up, you get wet, then it's 95 degrees, and you're on your feet all day. So I learned some lessons that summer about what I didn't want to do.
So how did going from corn detasseling to founding a company, did you always have that entrepreneurial spirit? Was it something that was inside, or did you learn it later?
I think it's something that evolves. I mean, there's a misnomer about big companies that there's not intrapreneurship or entrepreneurship within big companies. And so my philosophy was always, when I graduated college, go somewhere and learn from a great company. And so I worked at GE for 6 years, which across multiple different General Electric businesses, and watched how that worked, built skills. But I was always in the back of my mind, like, okay, when do I step out and do my own thing? So it was on my mind, but I was trying to put together basically a market basket of skills through my early career.
And cutting your teeth in business, you started at GE. What else was along that journey?
So after GE, I went back to business school, and then I was in banking for about 2 years, decided that wasn't really what I wanted, and got a call from a former GE colleague who asked me to come out to California to work at eBay in 1999, which was really at the, people tend to forget, it was less than 20, it was around 20 years ago. That was really the inception of the internet, and to see that kind of inertia and something building that fast from nothing was really what sparked, the entrepreneurial spirit and seeing the power and egalitarian nature of online businesses.
As you're kind of going through that eBay journey, did you ever go back to that corn detasseling, all of those hard hours that you worked, and really using those skills that you learned then in your days in eBay?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a work ethic that you learn when you're young. Yeah. And whether that's washing dishes or corn detasseling or any job that requires long hours and commitment. And so, yeah, I mean, through jobs as a young person and just the way we were raised, not to be afraid of work till the job's done and stick with it. And whether that's academics or your professional career, you may not get immediate payoff, but the long arc there is that it pays off.
Right. And so you were with eBay until
late 2006.
Okay. And then at what point did you decide, I want to move to Colorado,
Yep.
kind of start something new, start a new style of life for sure out here than the Bay Area?
Yeah. I mean, in the years following eBay, did a lot of other, startup work in the Silicon Valley. Met my wife. We got married, had a baby, and I happened to get a call from a headhunter about a job here in Colorado. Had never thought of it as a destination, and I think a lot of people get trapped in the myopia of the Bay Area, where this is the only place that online innovation happens, and came out for the job, and spent about almost 2 years in that job, and then in 2010, I brought some folks out with me from California. We broke away to start our own thing, and it was time.
And that thing was Craftsy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what was the impetus behind Craftsy? What kind of sparked that idea?
The impetus was partly personal. That some of my co-founders and I had been talking about wanting to continue education, whether it was take photography classes or go back and take history or philosophy classes. And no one had time. We were all married with young kids. No one has time to be at DU or CU from 7 to 10 every Thursday for 12 weeks. And a lot of the educational offerings that were online were subpar, both from a production values, learning outcomes, and caliber of instructor. So the initial idea stemmed from that, is democratizing access to the best instructors in the world in the given verticals, and we didn't know what those would be early on, and really provide a best-in-class learning experience online.
And you went the creative route, which is a little bit different than a lot of the other online learning platforms that you see. So what made you go kind of down that creative route?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to passion. And when you look at any business, really, you have the fundamental metric in the business is what it costs to acquire a customer and what that customer's worth over time. And at eBay, I learned the power of what are perceived to be niche communities. So you look at for example, the quilting community. Well, there's 15 plus million quilters in the United States that spend $3 billion a year on their hobby, whether that's through materials, magazines, books, videos, education, and very little venture capital or tech had focused on a category like that. And so we began to kind of amalgamate, I would say, hobbies, lifestyle, pursuits or passions where there's a high level of avidity and spend, and that the customers have already self-aggregated in many ways, which is the key. And you also had, thinking back 8 years, kind of a social zeitgeist and a technology convergence where, people I think were starting to run out of road a little on reality TV and some things that they were being force-fed, and wanted a richer experience and where they spent their leisure time learning and watching. And you also had the advent of ubiquitous wireless, iPads, which we remember, they've only been out 10 years, right?
It's moved so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of forgotten,
Camera
right?
technology, the cameras that used to cost $80,000 are now $4,000. Editing suites and software, video compression technology to stream high quality video. So a lot of things seemed to line up that this was a good time to launch a venture in this lifestyle learning area.
So what were your kind of growth goals in those first early years, knowing that you had these people that were avid about their passions and really going for it?
Yep.
What did your early business plan look like, and knowing what that growth phase looked like?
Yeah, I mean, in any new business, you have to meet a customer need and do something better than what is currently offered in the market. So we had to find a product market fit and learn fast as to format, price, and deliverable. Do customers want this? So working from that side on what the product and what the offering was, and then on the technology side, working with my co-founders, two of whom came from a deep technology background. How do you execute that in an elegant modality from a user experience, the delivery method? So where do you find them? What are you selling them? And how are they ingesting it? Those were the three initial things we focused on.
I love that. Well, we're going to take a quick break,
All right.
And when we come back, we're going to kind of finish the Craftsy story and then talk to John about some of his tips that he's learned over the years that he would like to share with young business people and entrepreneurs. So we'll be right back.
Before I came to Galvanize, I was a designer. I still am. I came here to be able to be a more full-service agency. It was really important to me when I was in the process of vetting this program to make sure that it was just as good for people who wanted to continue to work for themselves and live more of a freelance lifestyle as opposed to getting that full-time job. I think what surprised me the most is how much I love it. I think my biggest concern is that there wouldn't be that clicking moment, and then all of a sudden it started happening, and it was probably the most rewarding moment thus far where I was like, wow, this is really what I want to do. Like, it's working. I love it as much as I wanted to love it.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking to John about kind of the inception of and creation of Craftsy. So I want to move into a little bit more about the next steps that came along, which is the acquisition by Comcast and NBC Universal, and then the ultimate rebranding into Bluprint. Yeah. So how did that relationship start with Comcast and NBC Universal? How did the start of the acquisition kind of go down?
Sure. I mean, there's an old expression that is, companies are not sold, they're bought. So we were not actively shopping the business by any means. It evolved through, I would say, business development, partnership discussions, and then it just, made so much sense from a synergies perspective that it then evolved into an acquisition discussion.
So then you've moved away from the name of Craftsy and into a rebrand of Bluprint. What was the thought process behind that? Yeah,
I mean, the thought process there was, Craftsy evolved in a core of crafts categories. Our big ones being quilting, knitting, sewing, cake decorating. We're still absolutely committed to that and still huge markets, great businesses. We wanted to expand the aperture of the business to increasingly add more categories that our customers were asking for. We also wanted to go to create a streaming on-demand membership product as opposed to just a la carte purchases. And so the rebrand was both to introduce a broader swath of categories as well as introduce the membership, all you can watch, among other benefits there. And NBC Universal in particular brings great distribution and awareness for the business. It's the hardest thing for all startups is getting awareness, as well as access to great integrations on linear TV and celebrity.
Got it. So you took kind of that next big step and that jump into that next journey.
And they've been absolutely wonderful partners. A lot of times you talk to founders after an acquisition and they're counting the days till their earn-out or whatever their agreement is. But I'm, myself and the team remain as excited as we have ever been about reaching our mission.
And that's a point that I think we'll actually close on before we move into your 21 tips, which is you have been a co-founder, a CEO of the startup. You went through an acquisition and you're still the CEO of this kind of evolved version of rebranded. So that's a really unique position to be in that not a lot of entrepreneurs experience. How has that journey gone? How have you continued to learn and grow as a business person?
I mean, this is I think the key for all business people is you never stop learning. And different kind of phases of company development. We talked earlier about the product market fit phase, then you go into the scaling phase and introducing new products and new pricing and addressing different customers. I learn every day. and it is, you know, I was not a 24-year-old when we started it, so I had worked in big businesses that had scaled, which has frankly been an advantage. It's to see kind of those things already growing pains, and it's not to say we don't go through them too, but it's been nice to stay through the arc of the maturation of the company.
Well, it's so cool to see and be a part of, but then also neat that you have that learning component and you're open to that, which is a great transition into your 21 tips and tricks, I guess, that you wish somebody would have taught you early on in your career. So the first one that I want to cover is have a plan. Talk to me a little bit about what that means for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so many times people don't have a plan, and they misalign their personal life and their work life. Everyone thinks it's fun and seductive to be in a startup, but do you have a mortgage? Do you have 2 young children? That's hard to, you know, take that chance then. So what is your long-term plan? And part of that plan for me, for better or worse, was to learn from other people. And I wanted to work at great companies, iconic companies, young in my career, and then take those learnings forward. So yeah, it's I think both what makes you happy, what are you willing to sacrifice, you know, and what are your personal life and work trade-offs, and be honest with yourself about that.
Another one that I really love, kind of number 3 that on the list that you sent over to me, is be passionately dispassionate. And you mentioned being young and learning. And one of the things that you sent over to me before we started this interview was being young and thinking that you have to be passionate about all of the things. So talk to me a little bit about more of that passionately dispassionate.
That passionately dispassionate is a term I co-opted from one of our investors from Foundry Group, Bredfeld. And the way I interpret it is, let's take a look at Craftsy. I had no pre-existing passion for quilting. Like, I've come to appreciate it greatly in the communities around it. But if I had, as a founder, only wanted to do things I was interested in as subject matter, then it would have been Chicago sports legends, World War II history, great blues guitarists, and the company would have folded in 6 months. In other words, be passionate about building a great business. Don't think you have to build your business around your hobby.
I love that.
And a lot of people do that. And sometimes it works, and sometimes hobbies are just hobbies.
Right. Sometimes you just need a quilt on the weekends and get it out of your system. So being in the neighborhood of greatness is another one that you touch on. Working for great companies, being around great people. What else does that kind of entail?
I mean, it goes back to always be learning, which we referred to earlier, is you never want to be the smartest person in the room, particularly young in your career, and probably never, but it means being around people who are either smarter than you or can do something better than you and who elevate your game. And that goes for where you choose your early career, locations, companies you work for, as well as once you found a company, continue to bring in the highest. Don't ever be threatened by someone who's smarter than you or has strong opinions that may differ from you. Be in the neighborhood constantly of great dynamic people, and you will optimize your own potential.
That brings me to number 7, which is humility. Do you find that you exercise that one a lot as a CEO, that you have to be conscious of that one often, or have you kind of gone through your whole career with that one in your back pocket?
I actually think it's harder to exercise humility often when you're in a position of authority. When you're early in your career, it's assumed you don't know anything. I mean, but as you evolve and have teams reporting to you, whether at a company or at your own company, I think a lot of people become reticent or afraid to just literally say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I actually think it fosters, it empowers the people around you to fill those gaps. Because anyone who says they do know anything, it's not always the case. So there are some, perhaps, but I haven't met them. So there are always cases for all of us every day where you just don't know. And being able to admit that and then pull those, be in the neighborhood of greatness where you pull teams together to solve it is what gets you to great solutions.
I love that. Well, we're going to go ahead and post the rest of your 21 tips, tricks, and suggestions, I guess.
These are, we were talking about these only because I think we all learn more from our failures or mistakes than we do from successes, which are often serendipitous. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and post all of those down below in the description of the video. But we're all done for today. So thank you so very much for joining us. I really appreciate you spending the time.
Thanks for having me.
I know that you just got in from an early LA flight, so
thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And then for all of you out there watching, thanks so much for tuning in, and subscribe to the channel for more great content. Have a good one.